economics of the household studies decision-making by households, and that includes all kinds of decisions. It includes decisions that are typically studied by economists, such as consumption and savings. And it also includes a wider range of topics, and in that sense, the way I view economics of the household, I'm in the tradition of the new home economics. The new home economics was started at Columbia University in the 1960s by Gary Becker and Jacob Mincer. And they apply traditional economic tools of microeconomics to a wide variety of decisions by households, and that includes the subject of fertility. Excuse me. It includes the production of health prevention, like if people eat good food and they exercise, they prevent illness. So that's also a form of decisions that households make that has economic implications. Basically, every decision has economic implications. So anything, whether they decide to have an abortion, immigration, all decisions are of an economic nature. So in that sense, I'm in the spirit of the new home economics. Economics of the households also includes statistical analysis, empirical studies of time use, of how households save money and what kind of bank accounts they hold. So one of the concepts that's particularly important that I will be speaking about tonight is the concept of work in marriage. These are activities that people engage in that are not their favorite activities. They have opportunity cost because they'd rather do something else that they prefer. So for example, if washing dishes is not your favorite activity, then it has an opportunity cost because you would rather do, let's say, go to the beach. I live in San Diego, so a lot of people go to the beach. Secondly, to qualify as work, the activity also has to be appreciated by someone else in the household who is willing and ready to pay for it. So that cannot be a child, but let's say an adult in the family, perhaps the spouse, if he or she is willing to pay for this activity, then it's really work. And it doesn't matter if they actually pay or not. Given that a lot of things that are produced in households involve work, as I defined it, then it's also very important to find ways to compensate the workers for this work. And sometimes the compensation is in the form of an exchange between the spouses, let's say. So one cooks, one washes the dishes, one does the shopping for the food, one cleans the floor. There's enough things that can be exchanged. And in that case, the compensation takes the form of an exchange. But sometimes one of the people in this household is more involved in doing the work than the other. That often happens, especially after children are born. And in that case, I think it's important that the members of the couple agree on some compensation scheme. And I have introduced the concept of quasi-wage to express the hourly value of an hour of work in marriage. Sometimes I use the term WIM, W-I-M, for work in marriage. And so there could be disagreements about that among the spouses, and But it's really important, I think, that we recognize and accept exchanges of work for money inside marriage. And in the United States, at least, in many parts of the United States, it's illegal. One of the things that the feminist revolution accomplished many years ago is to create more awareness of the importance of men's involvement in the family, in household activities that involve work. And there is no doubt there's been a large increase in how much men do engage in this kind of activities. So if we observe time use studies from the 1980s and the 1990s and 2000 and so forth, we see a continuous increase in the amount of what I call work in marriage that has been supplied by men. And women's work has decreased, but not substantially, so women continue to do a lot more work. This is US data. They do a lot more work in marriage than men. And that's also the case in every single country I know. And that includes Denmark, which is part of Scandinavia, where there has been even more of an attempt to make things egalitarian, but it's still not very egalitarian. Even where men are becoming more involved in this work, it's usually not an equal exchange. It's usually still the case that women do more than men. In many couples, that's the case, even today, even if the wife works full-time. And so then, what do we do from here? And what has happened is a lot of women have been discouraged. One of the things you hear very often in the United States is women saying, I hate cooking. I grew up in Belgium, so I don't particularly love cooking, but it's very clear to me that if you want to eat healthy and good food, you have to learn how to cook. You can't just eat it at restaurants every day. I think there's a lot of emotional reactions regarding this whole subject of work in marriage, and especially cooking, and even more so baking. And in America, it's like an institution to bake cookies. And I don't remember the exact episodes, but there have been some issues over presidential candidates and their wives, whether they cook or not, and they bake or not. I think at some point Hillary Clinton baked some cookies to show how, like the symbol of it. It's not like she's against baking cookies. And it's a very loaded issue that in part, I think it's so loaded emotionally because people don't address it with sufficient rationality. And what I propose in my work is that people address the subject in a more rational way, the way businesses address issues. And you were telling me earlier about the case studies approach to family functioning, and that seems like a very interesting approach, because just like case studies at Harvard are a way, in the business school, are a way to address problems that businesses have, and you just go case by case. Likewise, it would be very interesting to see how one family after another resolves its problem, and I would imagine that it would help in many cases to open the horizon and include exchanges of work for money that may resolve some issues, I would think. I know that in particular, some of my students who take my classes on economics of work, marriage, and the family at San Diego State, some of my students have talked about what they learn in class about work and marriage and quasi-wage, and it has helped them resolve issues with their partners.